Hey, what's up? Lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. This is a first edition book from 2005. I've had this for a very long time. We are going to discuss the book, the plot points, then the legacy, and the obsession that Percy is. I'm wearing a Camp Half-Blood shirt. I will try not to ramble, as I tend to do, but here we go. So, Percy Jackson is a 12-year-old dyslexic ADHD boy who goes to a private school upstate New York, Yancey Academy. He went to the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art in New York City, Central Park, as a school field trip. The class is going over different, Greek gods and goddesses, and his teacher, Chiron, who's not known to be Chiron at that particular moment. He's named Mr. Brunner. Is this guy in a tweed jacket in a wheelchair going over, history. He also is the Latin teacher as well. So chaos ensues at the museum where Percy's math teacher, Mrs. Dodds, all of a sudden sprouts leathery wings and attacks him, and then Percy's given a pen from Mr. Brunner, which turns into a sword, and then he defeats Mrs. Dobbs. She dissipates into a golden shower. Now, his best friend, Grover, who has like a walking disability, has convinced Percy, as well as Mr. Brunner, as well as the rest of the class, that Mrs. Dodds never existed, that she was just a hallucination, that there was never a Mrs. Dodds math teacher. So Percy thinks he's losing his mind. Percy then has to go back, to his mom's apartment with his stepfather, because he's been, kicked out of yet another school for instigating a fight with this Nancy Boba Fett character. And so Smelly Gabe is awful. His mom, Sally Jackson, is an incredible candy worker. She wants to be a novelist, but she's always been putting up with Gabe's crap, basically, to keep Percy safe. But why to keep Percy safe? Percy ditches Grover, at the train station in order to go see his mom directly. Sally and Percy wind up taking Gabe's Camaro to Montauk, New York. Montauk, Long Island. So I live on Long Island. I'm a Long Island boy. This book always resonated so perfectly with me because I am well versed in Montauk. I am well versed on Long Island. So this is a hometown hero kind of story. In Montauk, Sally's going over Percy's real dad, but she always gets sad talking about him because she misses him so much. And then all of a sudden, Grover appears, wet, soaking wet. There's a hurricane approaching, and Grover's like, "Listen, we gotta go. It's not safe." It turns out that a Minotaur has been chasing them, and Grover and Sally decide that the safest thing to do is to get Percy back to Camp Half-Blood. Camp Half-Blood is a camp for Greek demigods. Now, in the first 3 chapters of this book, Chiron, who's Mr. Brunner, literally discusses Greek and Roman gods and how they've always been in power and that they moved with Western civilization and things like that. You forget these certain little tidbits reading 20-something of these books because of how long ago this book was. And you're like, holy crap, it was mentioned in the first 3 chapters, Greek and Roman gods, things like that. So fun facts. So at the borderline of Camp Half-Blood, there's another battle ensuing because the Minotaur destroys the Camaro. Percy, Sally, and Grover try to escape out of the car. Grover's basically unconscious. Percy winds up fighting the Minotaur, slashing its horn off, which goes to, see, this is Percy in his orange Camp Half-Blood shirt, with his sword, Riptide, Anuklusmus, and the Minotaur horn, staring at the Empire State Building, because Mount Olympus is on the 600th floor of the Empire State Building. Here we go. He's standing in the Hudson. Now, Percy doesn't get to save his mom because the Minotaur grabs Sally, and then she dissipates into other powdery stuff, but she doesn't actually die, as Percy hopes. He gets to Camp Half-Blood after collapsing. He wakes up to this blonde, Cali chick kind of girl with storm gray eyes, feeding him liquid chocolate chip cookies. Turns out to be nectar and ambrosia, things that heal gods and demigods. Chiron appears eventually as Mr. Brunner, who then reveals himself as Chiron, who is a centaur. Mr. D is the camp director. He is the Greek Olympian Dionysus. And then Percy is explained he is a half-blood. His father obviously is a Greek god, but they don't know which one yet because he's not been claimed. He gets toward the camp. He goes in the Hermes cabin where he meets Luke. Luke is awesome. He's got a scar on his head, blonde hair, scar down his cheek. And like they explain, this is what we do at camp. This is what the burnt offerings to the gods are at mealtime. This is the sing-along songs we do. This is the marshmallows we roast. This is, the strawberry fields that, it helps mortals realize that we're just a farm. We're not, training for battle, things like that. And then camp has this thing where there is a game of capture the flag on a Friday night. So the Ares cabin, who is being led by Clarice, who is Ares' daughter, one of Ares' daughters, who is another bully who Percy does fight, which is hysterical, in the bathrooms, covers her in toilet water. Wonderful scene. Has it out for Percy. So Percy is now fighting against Clarice and her siblings on Capture the Flag Day. But as that's happening, a hellhound randomly appears out of the forest, tries to attack Percy. Percy kills the hellhound as well. So he's killed a minotaur and a hellhound within a couple of days. Incredible. So he steps into the water. All of a sudden he feels energy and he's, able to fight all these things off. And he then has this green trident above his head, having Poseidon claimed him. Everyone drops their weapons, bows down at the son of Poseidon. That was the end of one of the chapters. I still cry to this day of that means of self-proclamation in the sense of knowing who you actually are at that moment. Incredible. So then Percy's told that the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, were never made an agreement to never reproduce after World War II. Obviously, it was broken because here Percy is at 12 years old. In 2005, this is when this book came out. So us in the fandom kind of assimilate the first book in the year 2005. It's not actually factually stated, but 2005. So that means he was born in 1993, right? If he was 12 years old in 05, so he was born in 93. The true millennial hero that he is. Percy has to go speak to the Oracle, who is this shriveled up mummy in a hippie dress in the attic of the big house at camp, who gives him a quest. The quest then has Percy, Annabeth, and Grover being revealed as a satyr, Annabeth being revealed as the daughter of Athena, going on a quest to go find what was lost, face the god who has turned, and he'll be betrayed by a friend. There is a full poetic prophecy which Percy and company have to figure out. So Percy, Annabeth, and Grover get escorted by Argus, the camp security guy, who's a surfer dude with thousands of eyes all over his head, go to Greyhound bus terminal in New York. They get on a bus. All of a sudden, Mrs. Dodds, the Fury, and her two sisters appear and try to kill Percy and company, but they're actually looking for something. They keep saying, "Where is it? Where did you hide it?" So the bus explodes. Percy is photographed. And now there's news tabloids going around that Percy destroyed his stepfather's Camaro, his mother is missing, and now he destroyed a Greyhound bus with two accomplices. So in New Jersey now, they come across this Mrs. M's Garden and Gnome Emporium to try to get help. But they meet this middle-aged Middle Eastern woman decked out in, black shrouds and everything, and she offers them food, makes them sleepy, and then they're like, wait, why are all these statues so scared and comfy? And Grover's like, wait, that's my Uncle Ferdinand as a garden statue. Turns out Mrs. M is Medusa. So then Percy and company battle Medusa. Percy then takes a nucleus riptide, slices her head off, puts it in a box, finds a shipping label, and says to the gods of Mount Olympus, something like, with love, Percy Jackson. Takes some drachma, which is golden coins, puts it in a pouch as the slip, and then Hermes, who is the delivery guy, kind of poofs it away to deliver it. Badass. So from New Jersey, right, they have to still travel west. How are they traveling west? So they take a train. They have enough money that they take enough money from Annie M's, for Medusa's Garden Gnome Emporium place, and they get an Amtrak train. There's a 3-hour layover in Denver. No, I'm sorry. Yes. They only had enough money to get to Denver, Colorado, but there's a 3-hour layover in St. Louis, Missouri. So they get to St. Louis. Annabeth really wants to be an architect, so she wants to see the arch. So the kids go to see the arch, where then Percy and company have to battle Echidna, who's the mother of monsters. There's another explosion at the top of the ark. Percy finds himself in the river, down by the St. Louis River. And there's a river spirit who kind of saves him and kind of explains, how murky the water is, but she is a servant of his father. So she's going to help as much as she could. So that's what happens. So the kids then get up. Again, they're photographed that, there's another explosion. So Percy is now from a car explosion out in Long Island to a bus explosion in New Jersey to a explosion of the arch in St. Louis. So then they get back on the train, pretending nothing happened, get to Denver, Colorado. In Denver, Colorado, they meet Ares, who kind of makes a deal with them. Ares, the god of war. And he says, listen, I need you to go to this Waterland amusement park, get my shield, and I'll help you get a ride to Los Angeles, because that's where they have to go. They have to go to Los Angeles because that's where the entrance to the underworld is, because they need to get to the underworld to, try to save his mom, but also get the thunderbolt that they assume Hades had stolen from Zeus at the winter solstice. This is when all the hell broke loose. So they hitch a ride on this zoo truck. There's a lion, there's an antelope and a zebra, something like that. Grover can talk to animals, so the animals are saying that they've been abused. And then eventually they get to Las Vegas, Nevada, and the animals escape. The kids escape. They wind up in a hotel called the Lotus Casino and Hotel. Now, the Lotus Casino is a very interesting casino because it stops time around you. You are in this moment as the world, continues on. Percy realizes this when he's playing a video game next to this kid who's stuck in 1977, and he's like, wait a minute, and he looks around and he sees everybody. But the memory starts to go. So eventually he realizes he has to go to the underworld to save his mom. He has to go to the underworld to face Hades to get this lightning bolt back. He's got to do all these things. So he gets Annabeth and Grover out of there, but their deadline for this particular quest was the summer solstice, which is June 21st. So they spent a few days in the Lotus Casino, even though it only felt like 2 or 3 hours. It was actually a few days. So when they're being chased by certain, cretins, if you will, in Las Vegas, they wind up at this Krusty's waterbed palace. Procrustes is another Greek, villain. And so he tries to kill Annabeth and Grover. Percy winds up tricking Krusty to get on a waterbed, has the ropes lash him to the bed, takes a Nucleus Riptide, and chops his head off. Badass number 2. So, he doesn't, oh no, he does. Does he take the box of Krusty's head to Olympus? I don't think he does, but it's still another beheading of the 12-year-old Percy Jackson. Incredible. So, they then convince a taxi driver to take the Lotus Casino's debit card and drive them to Santa Monica Pier, because they have to get to Santa Monica Pier. That's where apparently the place of the entrance to the underworld is. And they know this because of the different packing slips that they found at Medusa's place and Krusty's palace. So they eventually get to Santa Monica. They can't find this entrance to the underworld, and then Percy just steps right into the Pacific, talks to another water spirit, goes down to one of Poseidon's temples, and gets these 3 pearls, 3 Persephone pearls, in order to use however they may be, when they do get to the underworld, that could be their ticket out, basically. So he thanks the spirit for the pearls. He would love to see the father's palace, but he knows he's on a deadline. So the 3 of the kids go to this recording studio in Los Angeles, convince Charon, who is the ferryman, gives him drachma, takes them into the underworld. Annabeth winds up playing with Cerberus, the 3-headed Rottweiler guard dog that he is, the monster that he is, with a red rubber ball. Perfect. Also, she uses her, invisibility Nike's cap quite sometimes. Wonderful. And Grover's little trinket was a reed pipes that he can play to do certain things, specifically with nature, because he's like a nature spirit, technically, as a satyr. So eventually the kids make their way, face Hades. Hades is telling them that he didn't steal the lightning bolt, that somebody else is stealing the lightning bolt. And while all this is happening, Percy keeps having these very vivid dreams of something in the pits of Tartarus telling him to do things and try to brainwash him into doing these things. So Hades explains that it had to have been Ares, that he's the god who turned, that Hades is not the god who turned, because why would Hades want more death in the underworld? He has too many souls to process anyway. He doesn't need any more. So why would he steal something from Zeus when he himself has his helm of darkness, the helmet that he wears for invisibility and power and shadow changing and stuff like that? Both the lightning bolt and the helm of darkness were stolen. So why would Hades steal his own crown if darkness is missing and if the lightning bolt is missing? And Percy's like, huh, you're right. So here's the deal. You release my mother because Sally was used as a bargaining chip. If I find your helm, if I find who actually did this. So the kids smash their pearls. Hades agrees to the proposition, agrees not to kill them at that moment. They go back into the water in Santa Monica. Coast Guard picks them up, and there's Ares ready to fight. So Ares and Percy have a little battle after Ares sends a pig, warthog, whatever you want to call it, a boar. There you go. His symbol is a boar to try to defeat Percy, but Percy obviously destroyed the boar in the water, and then Percy and Ares are battling it out. Ares is explaining that he's been hearing a voice and he's been having dreams and he wants the war. And Percy's like, oh, it's the thing in Tartarus. And then Ares gets a little wonky on it, right? But he's saying that he himself did not steal the items, that he got the items from the person who stole them. And you're like, interesting. So as this is happening, earthquakes are happening, fires are going through Los Angeles because Hades is still mad. Police show up, Ares explodes the police cars, but as this is happening, the news outlets change it, and it's not Percy Jackson the terrorist, it's now Percy Jackson the kidnappee. That Ares is the guy who did all the explosions in New Jersey on the bus, in St. Louis in the Ark, and then here now in Los Angeles, that Percy and his friends are just victims of kidnapping, and that this guy's the bad guy. So Percy's now viewed as a hero amongst the mortals, and then eventually for the demigods. So, Hades' Helm of Darkness actually was in Ares' presence, and Ares had tricked Percy by giving him a backpack where the Master Bolt was, where Zeus's lightning bolt was. So Ares has the Helm of Darkness on the beaches of Santa Monica, and Percy has the Master Bolt. So Percy defeats Ares in an incredible twist of fate and gets the Helm of Darkness. The Furies then come back. Percy gives the Helm of Darkness to the Furies and says, give this to Hades, tell him what happened, because you saw what happened. They say, yeah, we know you didn't steal the bolt. So that way Hades doesn't, try to pull out a three-way war again with Poseidon and Zeus, because Zeus always claimed that Poseidon is the one who stole the bolt, or had Percy steal the bolt at the winter solstice, but Percy didn't even know that this world existed at the winter solstice. He was still at Yancey Academy, so a little wonky. Now, Percy and company have to get back to New York City. Percy's not supposed to fly because that's Zeus's domain, but he said, you know what? Screw it. They get a plane ticket after a bunch of people raised some money by police officers passing around a cap to put cash in to get them to New York. Percy then goes to Olympus, has Annabeth and Grover go to Camp Half-Blood, tell Chiron and everybody what happened. Percy has a meeting with Zeus and Poseidon about the bolt, gives the bolt back, all is well on that front. Poseidon and Percy have a father-son moment, and Poseidon's like, listen, you got to figure out what you want to do. You're capable of it, but you still got to figure out what you want to do. So how your fate's going to go. Percy then goes to his apartment with his mom to see her for the first time. Tears shed all around. Smelly Gabe is still being an ass. So then Sally is like, don't worry, I'll take care of it, after Medusa's head box appears. So knowing that Gabe's going to die. Percy gets back to camp. Everyone is revered as heroes because they finally returned from a quest. The last hero that had returned from a quest was Luke, son of Hermes. And then Sally writes to Percy throughout the summer as a long epilogue, 2 chapters of an epilogue, which is very, very happy about that, saying that Gabe's not a problem. She sold a poker statue to a high-end museum, and that everybody loves it, and she's putting money down on tuition for New York University. She's ready to get her degree in writing, things like that. Very happy. So Percy doesn't know if he wants to stay at camp year round or go back home with his mom to live in a brand new apartment, as just the two of them. Even though monsters are still a threat, it's just he's never had that opportunity. So he's trying to figure out what to do. He's packing up, but then he's like, I just got to clear my head. I got this, all this energy. I need to clear my head. So he goes down to the training fields to do some sword fighting. He sees Luke is still sword fighting. Luke is a year-round camper, along with Annabeth, but Annabeth winds up going back to California with her father, stepmother, and step-siblings. So Luke and Percy, have a conversation. Luke's like, hey, why don't we go to the forest and just, see if we can find a monster. So then it turns out that Luke is revealing a master plan, snaps his fingers, and a pit scorpion pops up from just an entrance to hell that just appeared. And Percy's like, wait a minute, you're the friend who would turn. You're the one the prophecy was talking about. And he's like, haha. So the scorpion's about to attack Percy. Luke is explaining the master plan and how he's been brainwashed by Kronos, and Ares is the one who captured him, and Ares is the one that took the master bolt. And, Luke is still abiding by, Kronos' will, basically. Kronos being the father of the Olympians. Kronos being the evil father who swallowed all of the children, and, Zeus had tricked him and ate a rock, and then eventually Zeus destroyed Kronos, sent him to Tartarus, chopped him to thousands of little pieces. And, Kronos is now reforming in Tartarus, which is a pit lower than Hades. And so he wants revenge, basically. So that's why Kronos was trying to trick Percy, but Percy was too smart. But Kronos did trick Luke. So Luke is now trying to kill Percy, but Luke then disappears through a rift with a double-edged celestial bronze and stainless steel blade. Pretty cool blade. The Scorpion and Percy fight. The Scorpion gets Percy. Percy then collapses after Naiad spirits try to take him back to camp. Annabeth is there giving him liquid chocolate chip cookies through a straw as nectar and ambrosia yet again. Percy explains to everyone present what happened. Grover got a searcher license, so he's going to find Pan now. Chiron's going to go back to Olympus to discuss what happens, that, Luke is a infiltrator, and Percy just needs to figure out right now, not to worry about future Kronos problems, but right now, is he going to stay at camp or is he going to go back home with his mom? He eventually decides he's going to go back home with his mom. He knows that he's too weak right now to even think about fighting Kronos, that he has to regain his strength, that it's okay to take a pause. He talks to Argus, asks him to bring him back to Cabin 3 to pack his stuff, and then away he goes to live with his mom, to go to another private school for the school year. And thus concludes the plot of The Lightning Thief. Okay, so I don't know how long I've been talking. It's probably been like 10, 12 minutes of just plot points alone. This is an incredible book. Obviously, I'm animated because this is an incredible book. When I first read this, I did not expect the twists at the end. I was like, oh my God. So I came across this book in 2008, 3 years after the book came out. So in 2008, 3 years after the book came out, it was like springtime. I went to a Barnes & Noble's with my mom and grandmother because we were looking for an Easter book for my aunt. And I saw this book on paperback in like a employee's pick display. And I was like, what is this? Because I looked at it and I was like, this is an awesome cover. You have this kid holding some kind of cornucopia looking thing with a sword in a storm, staring at the Empire State Building, called The Lightning Thief. And I was reading it, and it's about Long Island. And I was like, oh, Mount Olympus, right? And I looked it up quick, talking about the Greek mythology, things like that. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. So I was like, I never got into reading books. When was this? Spring 2008, so I was 18 at this point. I hated reading because I only would read books that was forced upon us in English class in school. And I didn't like that. I never found anything that I actually genuinely wanted to read. So when I did some research on this, after getting the book, I was like, wow, this is awesome. So my grandmother bought me the paperback. It's like $6, something like that. Obsessed. So for graduation, she wound up giving me hardcovers of books 1, 2, 3, and 4 because book 4 wound up coming out at kind of around that time. And I loved it. I was so grateful. I was so excited. And then the following year was going to be, the next book, things like that, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Wonderful. So I got into that because I loved the cover. I just was so enamored by this this kid, this Percy kid. He's such a badass, killing a Minotaur, a Hellhound, decapitating Medusa, and decapitating Krusty, and like fighting Ares. And I was like, this kid is 12 years old from New York City. Who is he? Who does he think he is? He is amazing. And so I assimilated so much because I was still trying to find my way. I was still trying to find out who I was. And that scene of him stepping into the creek and the green trident, you know, appearing above his head still gets me to this day. It's just a means of finally getting that acceptance that you've always wanted, you know, learning that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be whoever you want to be. And it's still a testament all these years later, 15 years later, and 90,000 books later of Percy, the Camp Half-Blood saga, as Rick Riordan Uncle Rick has declared. It's incredible to see all of this. It's incredible to know all of this. It's incredible to be a part of all of this. And this legacy obviously translates so well. There's a hit Broadway musical. There was 2 feature films that we do not discuss because it's coming. The book series is being translated to Disney Plus as a series. Thank you, Uncle Rick. But yeah, this is the first book that started the dynasty, that started the empire of the Percy Jackson universe, the Camp Half-Blood saga. There's 5 Percy books, there's 3 Kane Chronicle books, there's 5 Heroes of Olympus books, there's 3 Magnus Chase books, there's 5 Trials of Apollo books, and then there's all of the Rick Riordan Presents books. This is the book that started it all. Rick Riordan wrote this 12-year-old kid with ADHD and dyslexia, giving him these superpowers because his son himself had ADHD and dyslexia, and he wanted his son to know that it's okay to be different, that you can be a hero. You don't have to be this troubled kid that everybody thinks you are. You are smart, you are safe, you are loved, and you can do anything you want. And that's what's awesome about this series. I'm going to get emotional. We're going to end it here. I'm going to leave my beautiful Camp Half-Blood shirt displayed. I'm going to wear this every time we talk about a Percy book. So on to the Sea of Monsters. That will be the next book I read / review. We'll see how long that takes. Who knows? I've been reading a little slow recently just because the holiday season is coming up and work has been a little crazy, but it is what it is. Merry Christmas to all. Thank you, Percy, for being the hero that you are. Mucho mahalo.